Welcome to Channel 24. I'm happy to introduce to you my guest today, John Sweeney, a British investigative journalist and writer, well known for his work with the BBC. He has won numerous awards for his reporting covering the Second Chechen War, and more than 20 years ago, he was among the first to call Vladimir Putin a war criminal. Now John spends much of his time documenting Russia's war against Ukraine. His daily war diary is highly recommended to watch. John, it's a pleasure to have you here in our studio. And as a Ukrainian, first of all, I would like to say thank you so much for your courage, for you being on the side of honesty. And the second thing I would like to ask you about your interesting outfit in our studio. That's kind of a provoking, you know?
So, Battle of Kyiv, it was cold and I am balls. And I had a camel-coloured duffel coat, the kind which Major Calloway wears in The Third Man. In the pocket is this hat, which I bought in an Italian ski resort. I said, "I've got a proper colour. I've got black." "No, this is the last one. It was the end of the season, but for you, €3. So I put my hat on. And the Battle of Kyiv, I'm freelance, I've left the BBC, I have no insurance, no machinery to back me up, so I'm on my own. So if I get into trouble, then I'm in trouble. And guess what? On day 2 of the war, a Ukrainian soldier says, "Stop filming." I was filming underneath the arch of brotherly love between the Ukrainians and the Russians. But anyway, "Stop filming." And I was filming myself on my phone with the river behind me, but it looked as though I'm filming that way. And what I don't know is behind the trees, there's a Ukrainian anti-aircraft gun.
Yeah. Yes.
So he thinks I'm filming that. I'm not. I walk 100 yards on, and then I carry on filming myself that way. And he comes out and said, "Give me your passport." And I'm an arrogant sod, Nataliia, and I don't like men with guns telling me what to do. So I say to him, "You're not a policeman. Give me your like that." And I go, "Okay, all right, okay, you win." Anyway, and I'm arrested and I'm taken in, you know, the funny pumping station house thing. It looks like a fairy castle underneath the bridge, the glass bridge on the road down to Podil from Krashatik. Mm-hmm. There's a road down and there's a little fairy castle.
Yes.
And inside that, there's a pumping station. But that was the base for the soldiers.
Okay.
And I'm taken in there at gunpoint, and he's taken my passport off me, and press pass or whatever. And somebody says, "Spionka Rossiya," Russian spy. So my Russian's terrible. And I said, "I am not a Russian spy. Google me."
Yes.
And they phone up the SBU, and I have to go to the SBU for them to check me out, and that's a whole other story. And it's not a healthy place to be on day 2 of the big war. But even so, I'm booked into the system, and then the mood changes, and a babushka comes and gives me a cup of tea with honey in it and a biscuit. And I've been arrested in Russia and Zimbabwe and other places, and this is the first time I've got a cup of tea and a biscuit. And it's, you know, the Ukrainian way.
The Ukrainian.
And then the guy who's arrested me, Vladimir Putin, he comes out and he says, "You've challenged Vladimir Putin in person, and Putin didn't like it." "Yes, I have." "And you've challenged Trump, and Donald Trump doesn't like you either." "Yes, I have." And he looks at me and he goes, "Russian spy, I think you have an interesting story."
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I support Ukraine, there are lots of reasons, because you're a civilized democracy defending yourselves like Britain in 1940, all of that. But one of the real deep reasons is because you've got the better jokes. Ukrainian sense of humor is so funny and so dark and so wonderful. And that's why I'm on your side.
So what is the connection with the outfit?
Okay, so the orange hat.
Orange hat.
I worked out, if I wore it, the Ukrainian cops, they were jumpy at the very beginning because the Russians are 12 miles away. So I went to the Buena Vista. It's the only bar in the whole of Ukraine that's open. and I'm desperate for a drink because I'm about to run out of alcohol. I don't mind the Russian army. I need a drink.
Yeah.
Or rather, I don't like the Russian army, but I can deal with them being up the road so long as I can have a drink at night. But anyway, and what happens is, you see bad stuff. So I went to the kids' hospital up the road, and there were children on dialysis machines. Their liver and their kidneys have failed them. And if they can't leave their machines, or if they leave the machines, they will die. But if they stay in Kyiv, they may die because the Russian army might kill them. Mm-hmm. And there's a clown from Donetsk, and she's very funny and very good. I'm wearing a mask because of the COVID stuff, but also these kids are very vulnerable. And I'm grateful for the mask, Nataliia, because behind it, I'm crying my eyes out, because somehow this gets to me.
Yes.
And I've seen lots of terrible things. And so at the end of a day like that, you go to the Buena Vista, have a drink, and you just a little bit of chilling out with my friends, the other journalists, they've been at the front line to Bucha or whatever. And then it's after curfew, and I'm in trouble. And I go down with the hat.
With a hat.
And the cops come out, National Guard police, what the f*** are you doing in Ukraine, and all this stuff. And I go, God save the Queen. And the second night, I'm late again, past curfew. What are you doing? God save the Queen. Third night, they come out the shadows and they go, God save the Queen. And it meant that the Ukrainian cops knew who I was. I wasn't a Russian spy. They'd worked that out. And I was a British journalist. And from then on, my British journalist friends realised that if they followed me with my light shining on, and I would talk loudly in my English accent, that the Ukrainian cops knew who I was. And then towards the end, I would shelter about 10 journalists, all late, past curfew, down the hill to the safety of wherever they were staying. And so this is my lucky orange hat. I actually put it up on auction online in Britain, and it raised £15,000 for Ukrainian charities. And the guy who won it gave it back to me because it still has magical powers and work to do.
Did he give you money? But
all the money went to Ukrainian charities. He won the hat in the competition. He won the competition.
He won it, but he just gave it back to you.
He gave it back to me.
Okay.
So this has got magical powers. Do you want to wear it?
No, thank you. I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. Maybe afterwards. So
I told you I was bald.
Yes, John. So this time, the reason of your visit to Kyiv is the festival Vladimir Putin do fuck off.
Yes.
Yes.
Are you allowed to say it, by the way?
I don't know. I'm just okay. I think YouTube will not ban me for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what is the main message behind? It's the third time you're arranging it. What is the main message behind this festival? And what is the best outcome of it?
The best outcome,
yes,
is that Vladimir Putin does as we wish, does as we like to say, and he fucks off.
Okay.
Russia should out of Ukraine, full stop, and all of Ukraine, Crimea too. Yaroslav Ladigan and I were planning to open a fish restaurant in Balaclava called the Balaclava Fish Restaurant. For the moment, the Russians are getting in our way, but that's a plan.
That's a plan. Okay.
I want Putin to go, I want the Russians to go, and I want the Russians to atone for their war crimes in the way that the Germans did after the horrors of Nazi Germany, that they should pay Ukraine a ton of money. And by the way, I'm all in favour of this European plan, which is a good one, of setting up a loan system, giving Ukraine $200 billion using the collateral of the Russian gold in the bank in Belgium.
Yes.
That's cool. But there are two other things. Far too many people in the West have become bored by the war. And our message to them, my fellow Brits, Americans, Europeans, in particular Americans because of Trump's wibble wobble, do not forget that this war is still continuing. And for ordinary people, say, for example, here in Kyiv, life is actually more dangerous than it was in 22 because of the drones and all of that. We may be bored by the war, but general boredom is maybe Putin's best general. We've got to stop being bored. We've got to stand up to Russia, and we mustn't forget that Ukraine is still suffering and Ukrainians are still dying because of this stupid war. And that means that we need to be doing far better sanctions. We should stop buying Russian liquefied natural gas, all of these things. And also, we raise money for a basket of charities, Ukrainian charities. Lifeline, one of them is Lifeline Ukraine, which helps Ukrainians who've had some terrible mental illness because of the things they've seen, the friends they've lost. Another is the Titanium Clinic, or whatever it is. So I met this guy. This is based on a guy called Anton. I've tweeted about it. I've got 250,000 followers on Twitter because I stayed in the Battle of Kyiv, and I tweeted stories, all sorts of stories, for example, seeing the children, but also stories of tremendous Ukrainian heroism and courage and comedy too. I talked about being arrested by the my Ukrainian friend Marchenko. We've become great, great friends.
Yes.
And he's still in the Ukrainian army, and he does some great stuff. And so this is, but there's something else as well, is that I crashed out the BBC in 2019, and it was all a bit sad and unpleasant. And what was weird about coming to Ukraine in 22 is it gave me my dignity back as a reporter, and people could see that whatever nonsense that happened to me in 2019, I was still a brave reporter. And so part of what I'm doing is thanking Ukraine for giving me the opportunity to be a good storyteller again. And the story I'm telling is we've got to stand by Ukraine.
John, actually, yes, I want to follow up on that, because the war is now being documented in a very high speed. And thanks to your documentary, Eastern Front, and thanks to a lot of others.
By the way, it's called Under Deadly Skies.
Okay.
Because there's two films. We didn't know because we were silly.
Okay.
But it's called Under Deadly Skies, Ukraine's Eastern Front.
Ukraine's, okay.
Yeah.
That's the full
And this
name.
is Kaylin Robertson, who's been on your show,
Yes.
who's a great friend. He's a pain in the arse. No, he's a great guy. And he shoots it. During that film, every time artillery goes off, he jumps and the camera jumps.
Yes.
And then he says, is it like this all the time? And I just look at him and I go, you get used to it. And and now, you know, he's really being brave and stuff. And I worry about it. I worry about all my friends. But at the same time, we've got to tell this story. And just because it keeps on going on and on and on, we cannot let Putin win in Ukraine, because if he does, then he's coming for us next.
But still, yet, when people abroad see this movies, documentaries from international journalists, not only from the Ukrainian perspective, because probably they may think we're biased. So when they see the work from independent British journalists, and they can see how Russia is killing civilians, kids, destroying buildings, streets, schools and hospitals, and still we see people who get along with Russia, who's still on their side. How in the digital era it's still possible and happening?
Because the digital era is a wild west of chaos, and there's so much information out there, it's hard to process. And there's an awful lot of very, very stupid people who can't weigh evidence. And so it's people call me a warmonger. And I'm not a warmonger. And if I'm a warmonger, how do you characterize Vladimir Putin? Mm-hmm. Now, he's a liar. And he's a huge liar, and he has a lie factory back in Russia. So I'm on Twitter. I get attacked all the time by far-right people in Britain. But are they really far-right people in Britain, or are they from Volgodonsk? Mm-hmm. And so what I now do quite often is reply to them in Russian. Google Translate is my friend. Mm-hmm. But, you know, ya plokoi Ded Moroz or whatever. But these guys, I just fire back in Russian just for fun. But it's very, very difficult. It feels like a torture to me having been to Bakhmut 7 times, having seen it during the Battle of Kyiv, you know, the big rocket lands, and I'm one of the first reporters there at the TV station, and I stand in the blood without realising it. I look down, I'm standing in someone's blood. It was the blood of the TV technician who was killed there. And then out on the street, the people from the morgue come to pick up an old man and a mother and her 5-year-old girl who were killed by the second rocket.
I remember that day.
And I was there and I saw that happen. And I didn't want to... I took the shot carefully because I didn't want to see too much detail of the dead bodies, but I wanted to see the action of it. So I stood away. But I have seen the Russians kill ordinary civilians, and the evidence of that again and again and again. Now, these are war crimes. These are war crimes. I saw it first in Chechnya, and what's disgusting and revolting for me is seeing the same thing. So in 2000 in Chechnya, I reported on a Russian army massacre of a refugee column. They killed like 280 refugees from a place called Kyiv. And then 22 years later, I'm seeing cars with Yeti, kids scribbled on, that they've been shot up. And there are morons from my country who are telling me I'm a warmonger for talking about what I'm talking about. And it drives me mad. But part of the game is it drives you mad.
And by the way, you confronted Putin. You had the interview with him back then, covering Second Chechen War, and you.
No, it was about the shooting down of MH17.
Oh, was it before that?
It was 24. It was after 2014.
2014. Okay.
So I went out to Donetsk.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know how long we. Listen, I like telling this story because it's.
Yes.
So I go to Donetsk, and I go to the crash sites. And there is ladies' hats and paperbacks and bits of the plane and the nose and the engines and dead bodies and bits of dead bodies and the smell of the fuel and the smell of the dead bodies. But the thing that gets me, Nataliia, is that there's these trunkies, these little suitcases with wheels that mum and dad pull their toddlers along. You know, these little tiny suitcases?
Yes.
And there's one of those there. And when I see them at airports now, it still makes me cry. So I was I get back to London and I say, I want to doorstep Vladimir Putin. Doorstep is English reporter slang for when you knock on somebody's door and they open it and say, did you?
Yeah.
So let's doorstep Putin. And somebody says, it's impossible. In Moscow and St. Petersburg, you cannot get anywhere near Putin. The security's too tight. And somebody else says in the sticks, in the provinces, sometimes security makes a mistake. And somebody else says, he's opening a mammoth museum in Siberia. And the editor of Panorama, our programme, goes, do we have any reporters that look like a professor of mammothology? I go to my niece's wedding. It's like 4 weddings and a funeral, one of those things. At 3 o'clock in the morning, I have to get up. I've only just gone to bed. And I fly to Moscow, change planes, fly to Yakutsk. There's no food on the Aeroflot from Moscow to Yakutsk. I'm starving. I get off, and I said, we've got no time, says the producer. Sod it, I need a kebab. So we stop, I wolf the kebab, and then I rock up. And everybody... Now, I've got my wedding suit on, and it's got wine stains on it. And I look exactly like all the other professors of mammothology. They've all got rubbish suits with wine stains on and beards. I look exactly like...
So that's the costume you caught on cameras?
Yeah. And then what happens? Putin pimp rolls in. He always moves like a small bouncer in a strip club. He's like that. And I jump in front of everybody else. John Sweeney from the BBC, tell me about the killings in Ukraine. Tell me about MH17. And all of the Kremlin TV crews, they switch their camera lights on and they think this has been a preordained, organised question. And it isn't. And Peskov is there, his PR man, and he's really angry with me. But my shooter-producer, Nick Sturdy, starts shooting it, and Putin's trapped, and he has to answer the question.
What is the essence of the tragedy that is happening now in Ukraine? I think the main reason is that the Kyiv authorities do not want to conduct substantive political dialogue with the east of the country.
And what's weird, Nataliia, is that for a moment, Putin comes across really quite in an effeminate way towards me, as if part of him is excited sexually by my balls for challenging him. And there's a kind of moo. You can actually, I've got a screenshot of him mooing at me. Later, I hear an American security analyst, a guy called Paul Joyle, who's a friend of mine. After Litvinenko gets poisoned, Paul Joyle goes on American TV and he gives in a long interview and they cut it down. But he says, I don't think Putin's a paedophile. That's what Litvinenko said, and Litvinenko got poisoned with polonium for it. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's true either, or rather I think the allegation is a terrible one to make against anyone, and you need to have good evidence. And it was this thing of the Putin lifting up the boy and kissing his shirt. Have you seen that on YouTube?
Of course. Sure.
It's weird. But Litvinenko said he's a paedophile, and he didn't have enough hard evidence
to prove it.
And therefore don't say it. Even with Putin, don't say it. But Paul Joyle said, but I think there's evidence he's bisexual. After Paul Joyle said that, two strangers came to his house near Washington, D.C. and tried to kill him. They put a bullet in his stomach. The second bullet, the gun jammed, and then his dog attacked the two men and they ran away. So, but from my own experience, so Anna Netrebko, mm-hmm. you know, the Russian tenor, mm-hmm. who's singing in Russia in the Royal Opera House in London.
Anna
Netrebko. She's a Russian opera singer.
Okay, yes.
And she's singing in the Royal Opera House in London, and I and lots of Ukrainians protested against this. I actually sang Vladimir Putin, to the tune of Happy Birthday outside the Royal Opera House. And one of my pals, an English guy who's married to a Ukrainian, said, and by the way, folks, that's the best singing you're going to hear all night. Netrebko said previously that she would love to have been Putin's lover. He has strong male energy. I've met Putin. I did not think he had strong male energy at all. I thought he was bisexual. And by the way, this is the thing that you can talk about in a TV studio in Ukraine. And if I was to say that in Russia, I would be dead. Even to say he was corrupt, I would be dead. Now, and that's the difference between a democracy where people like me should be allowed to say things. Now, I may be wrong about this, but we ought to have the freedom to speak. And in Russia, people do not have the freedom to breathe.
John, but given how the Kremlin eliminates the brave voices with polonium, how on earth you are still safe and sound and alive?
Well, I actually feel safer in Kyiv than I do in London, because
the Kremlin, they have a long hands, right?
Yes, but I'm not a Russian spy who switched. So the people right at the top of the Kremlin kill list are people like Skripal and Litvinenko. They're the fancy poison for them. I'm a British journalist. I've been sanctioned by the Russians. And I'm on a list, but I'm about 900. I mean, you know, Zelensky, Zaluzhny, Budanov, they're way above me. I've written a book called Killer in the Kremlin. No one's translated it into Ukrainian yet. Come on, guys.
It's so sad. It's very hard to buy in Ukraine.
Yeah, but it's been a bestseller in English, translated into 10 languages. So I think that I'm on. I think they've got a very long kill list, and I'm down the bottom of it. And by the way, I'm very happy being down the bottom of it and all that kind of stuff.
So you are in the list still?
But down the bottom. There's lots of Ukrainians above me.
Okay.
And by the way, it's one of the reasons why I want Ukraine to win, is that I can, enjoy mucking around and having fun for a long time to come. Underneath the shirt is this. This stands for. So my festival was called Vladimir Putin Do Fuck Off. This is VPH. This is the funeral T-shirt for when Putin's dead. And that says
that's
Vladimir Putin.
For the special occasion, right?
Vladimir Putin has fucked off.
Has. So, yeah, he did it. John, listen, when European leaders are saying that they are already in a war with Russia, they sometimes, I hear that. So how would you read that statement?
There are two things. First, we are at war with Russia. The problem is we don't know it. And so how well are we doing at this war? We don't know we're fighting. And we're not doing very well at all. Now, the war in Ukraine is a war. It's of drones now these days, but it's a war of violence where most of the time, not all the time, some violence is used, but for example, against Britain, 10 Britons were killed in MH17. Litvinenko was a British citizen when he was poisoned with polonium-210. So was Skripal, and the Novichok killed a perfectly innocent Wiltshire lass, Dawn Sturgis. We're at war with Russia, but we don't know it. The problem with the rhetoric from London, from the European capitals, and Washington's been all over the place. It's getting better recently, but one worries about Trump all the time, is that rhetoric is cheap. Actions count much more importantly. We are not doing enough to support Ukraine, and this is what our festival is about, which is what my book is about, Killer in the Kremlin. We're not doing enough. We need to have far tougher sanctions. We need to kick Russian banks off the international SWIFT system. We need to stop importing liquefied natural gas. It's crazy that we give more money to Russia for oil and gas than we give to Ukraine to fight the Russians. What the fuck are we doing? Whose side are we on? Wake up the world. Wake up the civilized world. And the problem we've got is that Putin doesn't care about all the Russians who are dying. He doesn't care. So we're dealing with a psychopath. And the only way that we've got to deal with the psychopath is we have to crush the Russian army so that the Russians hopefully will wake up and discover that they've been run by the 21st century equivalent of Adolf Hitler.
Why are so many Russian journalists betraying their profession and working for dictatorship and propaganda?
Because all the good ones are dead. So personally, I've met Anna Politkovskaya, Natasha Estemirova, Boris Nemtsov, and Alexei Navalny.
All are dead. Yeah.
In order, poisoned, then shot, poisoned, survived, poisoned. Mm-hmm. And the signal matters almost as much as the bullet or the poison. The signal is, if you do what you're supposed to do, you're going to die. Some people are sexually compromised, some people are just broken, some people are ruined, but a lot of people fade away. And this makes me, I have a gift as a storyteller, and my gift can only work. It's like a football player. I need a football field. I don't need a football field. I need freedom of speech. Now, there are times maybe I get things wrong or I'm too over the top or whatever, but fundamentally, I love doing what I'm doing right now, telling stories. And the best stories, Nataliia, are the stories that money and power do not want told. Mm-hmm. And in Russia, what I do for a living is a death sentence. What you do for a living is a death sentence. Now, for example, in my book, I'm critical of Zelensky. Not a massive criticism, But there was I've forgotten his surname. There was a very, very good green activist called Roman, who was killed in 22, and he led the campaign against some stupid tower taking place, being built in Kyiv. Mm-hmm. And there was trouble. Mm-hmm. And Zelensky appointed the guy, there was a lawyer who came on heavily to this guy, Roman, and Zelensky appointed him to his executive office. So I was critical of that. Now, that's okay because Zelensky is president, but he's not a god, and Ukraine's a democracy. Just today, I met some soldiers, and they're 20, 21, from Azov. I don't particularly like Azov, but they're brave and good soldiers, and they're fighting, in my view, real Nazis. So some of this, they're all the Ukrainians are Nazis. Guess I'm a bad Catholic. In 22, I got a phone call from the Jewish Chronicle in London, asking me would I be their stringer in Kyiv. And I said, listen, I'm a bad Catholic. I eat bacon sandwich. We know. And then there's a pause. And they said, there's no one else. Mm-hmm. But what was funny was Putin says everybody in Ukraine's a Nazi. Well, Zelensky's Jewish. And I thought it was funny for me, a bad Catholic, to be the Jewish Chronicles correspondent in a Nazi state, Ukraine, as a joke, as a kind of to Russia, because Ukraine isn't Nazi, Russia's Nazi. And these boys from Azov, I said, what do you think to Zelensky? And they said, we're wearing uniform, but it was clear they didn't like him. But it's a democracy, and they're not fighting for Zelensky. They're fighting for democracy. They're fighting for the freedom to say what they think in the future. They're fighting for the things that we in Britain take for granted, the rule of law, honest policemen, more or less, honest judges, more or less, all of that. And in Ukraine, it's not perfect and there's a lot of corruption, I know. But Ukraine is so much better than Russia. So much better. Ukraine is a civilized place, getting better and better and better. And then Putin launches this war because he doesn't want a successful democracy next door to his revolting dictatorship. And that's why he's trying to crush you. He's never going to succeed. He's never going to succeed. Trust me, I've been arrested by a Ukrainian guy with a machine gun. I know what the spirit's like. But we've got to help you more. And shame on us. We're not doing enough.
John, it's just today Putin said that he reminded to the world that at the beginning of his career as a president, he wanted to be in NATO, actually. He was saying loud some he had some pro-European speeches. And then he became a killer in the Kremlin. And then he became a terrorist #1 in the world. I mean, it just...
listen, he's lying through his teeth. In 1999, his popularity was 2%. Then there's a series of apartment bombs in Moscow. Yeah. And the Chechens did it. Oh, no, they didn't. The FSB, KGB did it. There is compelling evidence that this was a black operation. Yes. And the evidence is the sugar bomb, the bomb made of hexagon sugar in the Ryazan. I've been to Ryazan and I've talked to people who left their block of flats in the middle of the night because a real bomb with real hexagon was found there. And the people who planted it showed their FSB cards to the Ryazan police. It's in my book. I've been to Ryazan, I know that. Putin murdered Russians to make himself look strong in 1999. It would be entirely... And George W. Bush and Tony Blair were wrong to fall in love with this guy early doors because he was always only ever a KGB killer. He was then, is now, and forever will be. The world will not be safe until Vladimir Putin is dead.
What things has Russian war in Ukraine changed for the world already?
I think most people with half a mind get it. Now, that doesn't include Donald Trump, though the king had a go at him, it seems. God save the king. And God save his old mum as well, who was lovely. But I think that 22, the big war, most people understand it. And so, by the way, you know, in Britain, Ukraine is still, everybody supports Ukraine. There are still Ukrainian flags flying in Whitehall from the government buildings. There are Ukrainian flags by my football team, West Brom, the Baggies, in a river in Surrey, everywhere up and down the country. We stand by Ukraine, but we're not doing enough.
Do you have your favorite place in Kyiv? And what place makes you sad in Kyiv as well?
My favorite place is the Buena Vista, because there is a copy of my book. Normally, actually, I need to give there's a copy of my book, Killer in the Kremlin, in the bar. And it was the only place in Kyiv where you could get a drink. So I love the Buena Vista. I love the river.
I think for the viewers, it's very important to explain why Buena Vista, because in 2022, that was the only place where you can get a drink because it was martial law.
It was martial law and you couldn't get a drink.
You couldn't get anything.
By the way, one of the cops came in and said, it's great that you're open, but we're raiding you at 10. Get all the foreign journalists out because we don't want to nick them. And just for fun, I stayed, and then I had to run out through the kitchen, and it felt such alive. So that's my favourite place. We should, before we go, I want to talk a little bit about the festival on Saturday for your thing. But let me finish off. So my saddest place. Oh, Nataliia, coming in on the train. There's a graveyard. I don't know where it is. But coming in on the train, and you could see all the new graves. And
with the flags, usually.
Yeah, flags. And you, my friend Arthur Snell pointed out, and you just, there's more young boys, young girls, but mainly young boys, having their lives destroyed and their future taken from them by this killer in the Kremlin.
It was, John, it's a great pleasure to speak with you. I think I could speak with you for ages, to be honest.
And you can't get a word in edgeways, that's the problem. But quick advert, Saturday, October the 4th. Yes. Saturday, October the 4th, from noon, in the comedy club. What's it called? It's near Golden Gate. It's the underground comedy stand-up club.
Yes.
Somewhere near an Italian restaurant. Porto something Duda. And it's not too much to get in, a fiver. I've forgotten what a fiver is in hryvnia, but it's a fiver to get in. And we raise money for a basket of Ukrainian charities. We got a video by the guy who did it. It's Anton. And Anton was in Bakhmut, hit by a mortar, and he lost both arms and a leg. And when I saw him in February, I said, "What do you think to Trump?" He said, "I want to be diplomatic. What do you think to Putin?" And he just got his new plastic arm, and the Ukrainians are very clever. So the fastest thing is you wire it to your brain, but that costs a lot of money. You can do 10 operations if you put the nerve stuff in the arm, and it's slow to begin with. Black plastic arm. What do you think to Putin? He said, wait. So the symbol of this year's festival is Vladimir Putin do.
You know, John, and by the end of conversation, I would love to see the moment when you will be in your second T-shirt, and that will be just in the right moment, you know?
And I'll say it's quite simple. Vladimir Putin has fucked off. Bring it on.
Yeah, I hope that day will come and as soon as possible. Thank you, John, for your time.